The invitation, nobody expected. The towering glass structure of the Mountain View headquarters shimmered under the soft California sun. The Google campus was alive as always. Electric scooters zipping by, coders immersed in discussions, engineers fiddling with prototypes that promised to change the world yet again. But amid the constant pulse of innovation, something different was brewing this week. Something lighthearted. Something human. It was the annual Google Global Talent Show. An event originally started as a small departmental fun evening had now transformed into a mega celebration of employee talents across all divisions. From engineers to HR managers, coders, to cafeteria staff, everyone got a chance to share a side of themselves often hidden behind screens and spreadsheets. This year, however, was different for another reason. For the first time, someone had dared to submit a nomination that sent a ripple of whispers across the company. Sundar Pichai, the CEO himself. But there was one problem. Sundar hadn't submitted it. The prank. It started as a harmless joke. A group of young interns from the new AI division, feeling bold and mischievous, had thought it would be funny to submit Sundar's name under the solo singing performance category. He'll probably decline it anyway, one of them chuckled while entering his name. Or maybe they won't even notify him. The notification, however, was delivered directly to Sundar's inbox. At first, Sundar thought it was some kind of glitch or spam. But as he read through the email, which had the HR coordinator's name, official formatting, and confirmation of his participation, he realized this was not a technical error. It was very much real. His assistant Priya knocked gently on his glass office door moments later. "Sundar," she said, hesitating. I know about the nomination," HR called. "It seems someone from the intern group submitted your name." Sundar smiled faintly, adjusting his glasses. "Did they think I wouldn't find out?" "They thought it was funny," she said with a half-apologetic smile. Sundar closed his laptop and looked out of his office window. Well, maybe it is. The unexpected decision later that evening, as Sundar walked around his garden. At home, he pondered the situation. He wasn't a singer, not by any stretch. Sure, he hummed tunes sometimes while driving, and his wife, Anjali, had occasionally caught him singing under his breath during family get-togethers. But performing, live in front of thousands of Googlers and broadcasted to partner offices globally, the very thought was terrifying. But then, another voice spoke inside him, the voice of humility and leadership. Sometimes the best way to lead is to show vulnerability. For years, Sundar had stood on stage to talk about artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and the future of search engines. But what about simply being human, showing his employees that even the CEO wasn't afraid to step outside his comfort zone? That night after dinner, he shared the situation with his wife. "What do you think, Anjali?" he asked. She smiled and gently touched his arm. "Do it. You'll surprise them all. And yourself." Sundar looked at her with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "But what if I mess up? My voice isn't exactly spectacular." "You're not doing it to win, Sundar. You're doing it because you can inspire them. That matters more." The preparation, the following day, Sundar officially confirmed his participation. HR was stunned. Word spread like wildfire. Memes began circulating in internal chat groups. Some employees were excited. Others were convinced he would pull out last minute. A few even mocked him, whispering, "This is going to be so awkward. The CEO will embarrass himself. Why take this risk? He's got nothing to prove." But Sundar stayed quiet. Instead, he began preparing. Every evening after work, he secretly practiced at home. Anjali helped him choose a song, one that carried a deep emotional message. After much debate, they chose "Bridge Over Troubled." "Water" by Simon and Garfunkel. The lyrics resonated with Sundar personally, a message of comfort, support, and strength, values he tried to embody as a leader. The soothing yet powerful melody was perfect. He even hired a private vocal coach, Susan, who worked with him for hours, helping him control his breath, pitch, and confidence. "You're not bad at all. she reassured him during one of their late sessions. You just need to trust your voice. But what if my nerves get the better of me? Sundar asked. Susan smiled. Then let your heart sing instead. They're not there for perfect pitch, Sundar. They're there to see you. The mocking begins as the event date approached. The office chatter grew louder. In a cafeteria corner, a few senior managers whispered, He's seriously going through with this? What if investors see this? Shareholders might question his leadership. Embarrassing himself on stage is not good optics. Some anonymous employees even posted sarcastic polls on internal forums. How long will Sundar last before cracking on stage? Options included 30 seconds, 1 minute, never shows up. While some were mean-spirited, others defended him. Guys, he's showing courage. That deserves respect. But the mockery continued. The night before the talent show, Sundar sat quietly in his living room. Anjali brewed him some calming chamomile tea. Tomorrow will be beautiful, she whispered. I feel like I'm about to give my first keynote again, Sundar said with a nervous chuckle. Except this time, I can't hide behind slides. Their teenage daughter Kavya sat beside him. Dad, you're going to be amazing. Even if you crack a note, who cares? You're Sundar Pichai. Her innocent confidence gave him unexpected strength. He nodded. All right. Tomorrow, I sing. The day arrives. The Google amphitheater was buzzing with excitement the next afternoon. Over 3,000 employees filled the seats, while thousands more tuned in via livestream. The stage was decorated simply. A single microphone stood under soft white lights. The backdrop read, Google Global Talent Show. Be bold, be you. One by one, employees took the stage. Dancers, comedians, poets. The energy was high, and then the MC announced, Now, for a very special performance. Please welcome your CEO, Mr. Sundar Pichai. The applause was thunderous, partly supportive, partly curious, partly skeptical. Sundar walked calmly to the center of the stage, dressed in a simple dark blue shirt and jeans, no fancy attire, just himself. As the first soft notes of Bridge Over Troubled Water began to play, Sundar closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath, and began singing. The voice of a leader. The first note as the soft piano notes echoed through the amphitheater, Sundar Pichai stood alone on stage. Every eye was fixed on him. Thousands of employees, investors watching remotely, media outlets who had somehow caught wind of the event. The pressure was unimaginable. His heart pounded like a drum inside his chest. But then, just before the first note left his lips, he remembered his wife's words. Let your heart sing. And so, Sundar closed his eyes and sang the first line. When you're weary. The words came out smooth, steady, and unexpectedly beautiful. For the first few seconds, the audience sat frozen, not expecting their CEO to carry a tune so well. Some jaws even dropped. The initial whispers of doubt that had filled the air vanished like smoke in the wind. The energy shifts. By the time Sundar reached the second verse, an incredible transformation had swept through the room. Even those who had initially mocked him couldn't help but lean forward, their skepticism dissolving into awe. The lyrics carried more than just melody. They carried meaning, a message of support, of quiet strength, of resilience, qualities Sundar himself had lived through his life and career. The same man who had once grown up in a small 2-room home in Chennai, India, with no telephone, limited resources, and long waits for a simple family car ride, was now standing in front of thousands, pouring his soul into a song that transcended language and borders. Flashes from the past as Sundar sang, small memories flashed in his mind like a silent slideshow. His mother's soft humming as she cooked in their tiny kitchen. His father's struggles to pay for his education. The letter of acceptance from Stanford that changed everything. His first years in America, homesick and broke. Climbing through Google's ranks with humility, focus, and grace. Every note seemed to pull from his journey. He wasn't simply singing, he was storytelling through music. The audience response in the front rows, his closest executive team exchanged glances, some misty-eyed, some embarrassed by their earlier doubts. At the back, several of the interns, who had submitted his name as a joke, now sat with pale faces, their laughter long gone. One whispered, "We thought it would be funny. We had no idea." And perhaps most moved of all were Google's junior employees, engineers, coders, interns, many of whom had come from humble beginnings themselves. To them, Sundar wasn't just a CEO anymore. He was one of them. The silent media storm unknown to Sundar outside of the amphitheater. Clips of his performance were already going viral. Someone from the media department had started a private stream for internal archival purposes, but it had accidentally leaked onto Twitter and YouTube. Within minutes, the hashtag #Sundar Sings began trending worldwide. News anchors scrambled. Google CEO surprises world with unexpected talent. From code to chords, Sundar Pichai stuns internet with emotional performance. A masterclass in humility, tech titan wins hearts. The final note, as the final chorus approached, Sundar's voice reached its most powerful crescendo. Like a bridge over troubled water, "I will ease your mind." His voice trembled slightly, not from fear but from raw emotion. The entire room sat suspended, caught between breath and heartbeat. When the music faded into silence, there was a brief moment where no one moved. No applause, no sound, just stillness. And then, like a floodgate breaking, the auditorium erupted, a standing ovation, not forced, not polite, but pure roaring admiration. Executives, interns, cafeteria workers, security staff, janitors, every level of the organization stood as one, clapping, cheering, some even wiping tears. The post-performance reaction backstage, Sundar was breathing heavily. His assistant Priya ran to him, eyes sparkling. "You did it, sir, you really did it," Sundar smiled, exhausted. That was harder than any keynote. His vocal coach Susan texted immediately. "You didn't just sing, you spoke to them." "I'm proud of you," Anjali called moments later. "The whole world is watching, Sundar, and they love you." He laughed softly. "I didn't expect that." The intern's apology. Later that evening, the group of interns who started the prank requested to meet Sundar personally. HR arranged a short private meeting. When they walked into his office, they looked terrified. One of them, Ramesh, spoke first, his voice shaking. "Mr. Pichai, we owe you a huge apology. It was immature. We didn't mean any harm." Sundar studied their faces. Young, nervous, the same age he was when he first left India. He smiled gently. "Thank you for your honesty." "We never thought you'd actually go through with it," another said. "Well," Sundar replied, "sometimes life gives us a chance to surprise even ourselves." They all exhaled, surprised by his grace. "Take this as your first leadership lesson," Sundar added kindly. "Never underestimate the power of humility." The interns nodded, deeply grateful. The moment would stay with them for the rest of their careers. The world reacts. By the next morning, every major outlet had covered the story. Forbes, Sundar Pichai delivers masterclass in vulnerability and leadership. BBC, the CEO who sang his way into hearts. The New York Times, Sundar Pichai's surprising performance may redefine what leadership looks like in Silicon Valley. Even major business analysts commented that his human approach had likely strengthened Google's brand more than any PR campaign could have. Meanwhile, in Chennai back in India, Sundar's mother watched the performance on YouTube. She clasped her hands together, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My son," she whispered. "He still sings like he did when he was little." A private reflection. That night, long after the applause had faded, Sundar stood on his balcony under the moonlight. Anjali joined him, placing her hand in his. "You showed them something they'll never forget," she said softly. Sundar looked at the stars. "I didn't do it to prove anything," he whispered. "I did it because I needed to remind myself that I'm still human." Anjali leaned her head on his shoulder. "And that," she smiled, "is why they love you." But Sundar's journey was far from over. the invitation that awakened the past a global ripple. The world had not yet recovered from Sundar's performance. News channels replayed the clip endlessly. Commentators praised his courage. Analysts discussed the deeper meaning behind his unexpected act of vulnerability. Memes filled social media, but unlike before, they were filled with respect and admiration. For days, employees across every Google office worldwide were buzzing with a new kind of energy. In boardrooms, people whispered, if Sundar could risk his reputation to step out of his comfort zone, why can't we take bolder steps too? Recruitment applications surged. Company morale hit record highs. Investors praised Sundar's leadership philosophy. Stock prices even saw a minor boost, not because of a new product release but because of a song. But Sundar Pichai remained calm, as always, until another invitation arrived. The letter one morning, as Sundar reviewed his schedule, Priya walked in holding a gold-embossed envelope. This came for you, sir, hand-delivered. Sundar opened it curiously. Inside was a formal letter from the Global Humanitarian Summit Committee, an international non-profit organization that hosted one of the most prestigious charity galas in the world. The letter read, Dear Mr. Pichai, your recent performance has touched millions across the globe. It reminded us all that leadership is not about titles, but humanity. This year, our charity gala focuses on bridging the gaps from privilege to poverty. We would be deeply honored if you would consider opening the gala with your voice. The world doesn't need another keynote speech. The world needs your song. With deepest respect, Elena Markov, President, Global Humanitarian Summit. Sundar leaned back in his chair, stunned. Singing once at Google was one thing, but performing at one of the most high-profile charity events in the world. Priya, sensing his hesitation, softly added, They don't want the CEO, sir, they want you. The silent struggle. That night, Sundar sat alone in his study, staring at the letter. Anjali entered quietly. The letter? She asked. Yes. And? I don't know if I can do this again, Anjali, Sundar confessed. The Google performance was safe, among my people. This is global. Presidents, royalty, media, critics. One mistake, and it'll be broadcast everywhere. Anjali smiled gently. Do you remember what you told your interns? Sundar chuckled weakly. Never underestimate the power of humility. Exactly, she said, holding his hand. This isn't about singing. It's about inspiring those who need to see that even the most powerful among us still have fear, but face it anyway. A ghost from the past. As Sundar pondered the decision, another thought tugged at him, one buried for decades. Back when he was only 10 years old in Chennai, there had been a school music competition. Young Sundar, who loved humming old Bollywood songs under his breath, was encouraged by his mother to join. But when he got on stage, a group of older boys in the crowd laughed, jeered, and mocked his voice. Stick to books, Pichai. You sound like a broken radio. Crushed and humiliated, Sundar fled the stage that day, vowing never to sing in public again. That childhood trauma had shaped him more than he realized. His entire life, he had focused on academics, technology, and leadership, always avoiding stages that required vulnerability, until the Google talent show broke that chain. Now this invitation felt like life, giving him a chance to finally erase that scar permanently. The decision. By morning, Sundar made up his mind. He texted Priya, confirm my participation, I'll do it. The Global Gala. 3 months later, Sundar arrived at the Vienna Opera House where the Global Humanitarian Summit was being held. The event was majestic. Crystal chandeliers glistened overhead, red velvet seats filled with dignitaries, celebrities, scientists, and global leaders. A live global broadcast was set to begin in minutes. Backstage, Sundar stood alone, breathing deeply. His vocal coach Susan had flown in to help him prepare again. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You've already won, Sundar. Just go out there and tell your story again, through the song. This time, Sundar had chosen something even more powerful, a mashup of two songs. Imagined by John Lennon, We Are the World by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. A message of unity. A message the world desperately needed. A shocking encounter. But just before stepping onto the stage, Sundar heard a voice behind him. Pichai? Sundar Pichai? He turned. Standing there was a man in his late 50s, salt and pepper hair, nervous, eyes. Sundar. I don't know if you remember me. I was in your school in Chennai. Sundar's eyes widened. He did remember. It was Ravi, one of the boys who had mocked him during that childhood competition. I saw your performance at Google. It went viral. I flew here for the summit. I had to tell you, I'm sorry. Sundar stared at him, searching his face. The weight of their shared past hung heavy in the air. I was young, stupid, jealous of how smart you were. I bullied you because I was insecure. But seeing you now, you've become everything I never dared to dream. For a long moment, neither man spoke. And then Sundar smiled gently. Ravi, we were kids. We've both traveled far since then. Tears welled up in Ravi's eyes. You've inspired millions, Sundar, including me. Sundar offered his hand, which Ravi grasped firmly. As Sundar walked toward the stage, a powerful sense of healing washed over him. The past no longer had chains on him, the performance of a lifetime. The grand curtains lifted, the orchestra played the opening notes of Imagine. The world held its breath as Sundar Pichai, not the CEO, not the engineer, but the man, stepped into the spotlight. Imagine there's no heaven. His voice was calm, pure, filled with quiet strength. As the mashup transitioned into We Are the World, a children's choir from war-torn nations joined him on stage, Syrian, Ukrainian, Afghan, Sudanese, and others, their voices blending into a single, heart-stirring harmony. We are the world. We are the children. In living rooms across the planet, people wept. On social media, viewers wrote, Sundar Pichai has redefined leadership. This is what the world needs. A tech CEO showing more humanity than most world leaders. When the final note faded, the Vienna Opera House erupted into a standing ovation even grander than Google's. World leaders stood. Royalty applauded. The entire planet witnessed not a CEO singing, but humanity itself singing through him. Backstage, revelation as Sundar stepped backstage, Elena Markov approached him. Mr. Pichai, she said softly, tonight you've done more than raise millions for charity. You've started a movement, a reminder that compassion is still alive at the highest levels. Sundar nodded humbly. It was never about me, Elena. It was about giving people hope. But life had one more unexpected turn for Sundar Pichai. The refugees voiced global reverberations. The Vienna performance wasn't just a viral moment anymore. It had evolved into a global symbol of hope. World leaders referenced Sundar's performance in their speeches. Schools played clips in leadership classes. Corporate workshops discussed his vulnerability as a model for modern leadership. Even newspapers that usually criticize Silicon Valley softened their tone. But something more profound was happening behind the scenes. People were writing to him. Letters poured into Google's headquarters from across the world. Some thanked him for reminding them of humanity. Others shared their personal stories of struggles and triumphs, inspired by his courage. But one letter would change everything. The handwritten letter. It arrived in a simple, unmarked envelope, handwritten, on modest paper. Dear Mr. Pichai, I hope you forgive a poor man for writing directly. I am an old friend of your late father from Chennai. My name is Subramanian. I remember when your father would save money just to afford you good school books, even skipping meals at times. He used to say, Sundar will one day go further than all of us. He was so very proud. And now, seeing what you've done, not with power but with heart, I finally understand what he meant. The world applauds your songs, but I see something greater. I see your father's dream fulfilled. Please forgive my intrusion. I simply wished you to know that your father would have cried tears of joy today. Sincerely, Subramanian Sundar sat in silence for a long while after reading it, his heart overwhelmed. He remembered the countless nights his father sat under dim lamps, repairing electrical circuits to afford his tuition fees. His father's sacrifices had built the very foundation Sundar stood on now. Anjali found him with moist eyes, holding the letter. "You're not just singing for the world, Sundar," she whispered. "You're singing for him." The UN's unexpected call. Just days after the charity gala, Sundar received an official invitation from the United Nations. The Secretary General requested him to speak, not as a tech giant, but as a humanitarian voice. The theme of the annual assembly? Bridging divides, the power of personal courage. Sundar hesitated. "I'm not a politician," he said to his team. "But you're something rarer," replied Priya. "You're real." The journey to Geneva. A few weeks later, Sundar landed in Geneva for the UN summit. On the flight, his mind whirled. This wasn't about singing anymore. The stakes were now global diplomacy, refugee crises, poverty, climate change, real human suffering. When Sundar arrived at the Grand UN Hall, ambassadors from 193 nations filled the massive chamber. Cameras rolled from every direction. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The speech that changed. The room, unlike his usual tech keynotes filled with product demos and charts, Sundar spoke from his heart. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "in my world of algorithms and data, we often chase perfection. But true leadership isn't coded in flawless syntax. It's written in vulnerability. It's found in every father skipping a meal to buy his child a textbook. It's in every refugee child singing through tears of hunger. I am not here as a CEO today. I stand here as the son of a humble man from Chennai who taught me that dignity requires no wealth. When I sang at the Google talent show, it wasn't because I'm a singer. It was because I was once silenced by fear as a boy. But we cannot let fear be the author of our future." The room was utterly silent, not from disinterest, but reverence. Leadership today must evolve. It is not measured by how many people work for you, but how many you dare to serve. We are the world, but we must act like it. When he finished, many ambassadors rose to their feet. A second standing ovation, this time from nations. A chance encounter later that evening as Sundar exited the UN hall, his security detail gently pulled him aside. "Sir, there's someone asking for you. A young refugee girl. Her paperwork checks out, she's not dangerous." Sundar turned and saw a frail girl, perhaps 13 or 14, standing nervously. Her name was Amara, a Syrian refugee. She spoke in soft, broken English. "Mr. Pichai." I watched. "You're singing on small phone. In our camp, we all watch. You make us feel not invisible." Sundar knelt down to her level, gently holding her hands. "Amara," he said softly, "you are never invisible." Tears welled up in her wide brown eyes. "My father, he played guitar before war came. When we had nothing left, he would sing to us. I want to sing too, but people laugh at me." Sundar's heart clenched. He saw his younger self in her. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small Google badge, the one he wore at his first job. "Keep this, Amara," he said. "Let it remind you, your voice matters." Planting a global seed, the moment haunted Sundar even days later. He couldn't let it end there. Back in California, Sundar called an emergency board meeting at Google. "I want to start a new initiative," he said firmly. "A global scholarship fund for displaced children, for refugees like Amara, full education, instruments, creative arts, technology. Let's give voices back to those silenced." The board unanimously approved. The fund was named the Voice Project. A movement is born as news of the Voice Project spread. Partnerships formed overnight. Other tech giants, universities, even the UN pledged support. Children across war zones began receiving instruments, teachers, and educational tools. Amara herself, now enrolled in a special global scholarship, sent Sundar a video message weeks later. In it, she held a guitar. "Mr. Pichai, I'm singing now, for my father, for my people, and because you showed me I can. The quiet reflection. Late one evening, Sundar sat again on his balcony staring at the stars. Anjali joined him. You never planned for any of this, she said. No, Sundar replied, but maybe this was the plan all along. She smiled. Sometimes leadership isn't about leading a company. It's about leading hearts. They sat in silence, knowing that somehow a simple song sung out of fear had ignited a movement, far greater than anyone imagined. But Sundar's greatest test was yet to come. The breaking point, the unexpected crisis only. 6 months after the Voice project was launched, Sundar Pichai found himself facing one of the greatest challenges of his life, one that would test not his voice, but his soul. An international conflict had erupted between two neighboring countries in Eastern Europe, escalating far faster than anyone anticipated. Millions of civilians were caught in the crossfire. Refugee camps overflowed. The crisis threatened to displace over 12 million people within weeks. Global agencies were overwhelmed. Governments hesitated. Political agendas paralyzed action. And then something remarkable happened. The Voice project became one of the only neutral humanitarian organizations able to operate in both regions. Why? Because the project was never tied to politics. It was born from Sundar's song, a pure act of compassion that the world trusted. But the pressure on Sundar personally skyrocketed. The UN's emergency request late one night, Sundar received a secure call from the United Nations Secretary General. Sundar, we need you. I'm not a diplomat, Sundar replied, exhausted. Exactly. That's why you're the only one who can enter both territories without suspicion. You're not seen as political, you're seen as human. You're asking me to walk into an active war zone. We're asking you to be who you've already shown yourself to be. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Sundar, like a mountain. Anjali, overhearing the call, gently said afterward, You've spent your life building technology, Sundar. Maybe this is the one thing technology alone can't fix, but you can. The internal opposition. Before he could leave, Sundar faced resistance, not from governments, but from within his own company. At an emergency Google board meeting, a few powerful executives voiced concerns. We admire your heart, Sundar, but you're risking the company's image. What if you're seen negotiating with controversial leaders? Investors will panic. This is not Google's responsibility. It's global politics. Sundar listened quietly. Then he stood. When I stood on that stage and sang, it wasn't for optics. It was because I believed leadership must be more than profit margins. If we only act when it's convenient, then we have no right to lead. The boardroom fell silent. One by one, most members nodded in reluctant respect. The mission begins. Within days, Sundar arrived in the crisis zone under UN protection. The scenes were heartbreaking, families torn apart, children wandering alone, elders sitting silently under makeshift tents, too traumatized to speak. In one crowded camp, Sundar met dozens of children from the Voice Project's local partner schools. Many recognized him instantly. A young boy named Misha approached him, clutching a makeshift guitar made from wood scraps. Mr. Pichai, I saw you sing on my uncle's phone. Can you sing here too? Maybe. It make people smile. Sundar knelt down, overwhelmed. Not today, Misha, he said softly. But I promise, one day we will sing together, when the world is peaceful again. The secret meeting. But Sundar wasn't only there for morale. Behind closed doors, he was secretly meeting with leaders from both warring nations under UN supervision. Using his unique position as a respected neutral figure, Sundar attempted what few diplomats could, human-to-human dialogue. He spoke not as a CEO, but as a son, a father, and a global citizen. We are fighting over lines on a map, he said during one tense meeting. But those lines don't feed hungry children. They don't shelter the elderly. They don't bring back lost fathers. One hardened general looked at him and whispered, You speak like my daughter would. Then listen like a father would, Sundar replied. The shocking betrayal. But not everyone was aligned with Sundar's mission. While in the region, Sundar learned that one of his own senior executives back at Google had secretly leaked information to certain global investors, accusing Sundar of crossing ethical boundaries by getting involved in war negotiations. The executive's plan was simple: destabilize Sundar's leadership and push for his resignation. He's endangering the company, the leaked memo claimed. The news hit global headlines instantly. Is Google's CEO overstepping his role? Pichai playing dangerous diplomatic game? Stocks trembled. Critics resurfaced. Board members grew nervous. The very movement Sundar had built, his humanitarian mission, was now being twisted into a weapon against him. The emergency board call upon returning to California, Sundar was summoned into an emergency board meeting, his leadership under scrutiny. The betraying executive sat across from him smug, expecting Sundar to collapse under pressure. The board chair asked bluntly, "Mr. Pichai, do you admit you overstepped your role?" Sundar looked around the table, calm but firm. "No," he said. "I did what leaders are supposed to do, protect people who cannot protect themselves. If that makes some shareholders uncomfortable, then perhaps they need to question their definition of leadership, not mine." He paused, letting his words sink in. "If you believe Google should choose profit over principle, then you may replace me." The room sat frozen. No one spoke. And then, one by one, board members slowly nodded. The betraying executive's face drained of color. His plan had backfired completely. The board chair finally spoke. "We stand with you, Sundar." The message. From Chennai that evening, exhausted but victorious, Sundar received a video message from Chennai. It was from Subramanian, his late father's friend who had first written him months ago. On the video call, Subramanian smiled proudly. "Your father would have called you foolish for risking so much, but secretly, he'd have been prouder than words." Sundar smiled, tears welling in his eyes again. "Thank you, uncle. Everything I am began with him." The emotional reunion days later, Sundar surprised Subramanian by flying to Chennai personally. For the first time in decades, he walked the narrow streets of his childhood, the familiar scent of jasmine, the honking of scooters, the small roadside tea stalls. In front of his old home, Subramanian hugged him tightly. "You may lead one of the world's largest companies, Sundar," he whispered, "but you'll always be the boy who dreamed big right here." But destiny wasn't finished yet. The world sings together. The world watches. Months had passed since Sundar Pichai faced betrayal, risked his career, and stood firm for his humanitarian mission. The Voice Project had grown far beyond anyone's expectations. Over 2 million displaced children were now enrolled in education programs across 30 countries. Refugee camps had been equipped with instruments, music teachers, and digital classrooms. Entire communities were healing not through politics but through music and education. But something extraordinary was now being planned, something that would define Sundar's legacy forever: the Global Unity Concert, an event where the world would gather, not to showcase technology, but to celebrate the simple, healing power of the human spirit. The Global Unity Concert. The concert was to be held at the Great Pyramids of Giza, one of humanity's oldest wonders, a symbolic stage for a global gathering. Leaders from every continent confirmed attendance. Major musicians, artists, and choirs from over 50 countries agreed to perform, all under one unifying theme: one world, one voice. When the idea was first proposed, Sundar resisted. "I'm not an artist. I'm not even supposed to be here." But the world disagreed. His song had started this movement. The world wanted him on that stage. A private conflict as the date approached, Sundar wrestled with an unexpected personal conflict, one that had quietly grown in the background for months. His father's old friend Subramanian had shared disturbing news from Chennai. "Sundar, there's one last thing your father never told you." "What is it?" "Your father had been secretly helping dozens of children in our neighborhood. funding their school fees, buying them books, even when our own family struggled. He never told me. He wanted you to focus on your dreams, but his dream was simple: lift others quietly. Sundar was speechless. Everything he had built, the Voice Project, the humanitarian work, the sacrifices, had unknowingly mirrored his father's hidden life of service. Now, for the first time, Sundar fully understood. This was never just his story. It was his father's unfinished song. The concert begins as the concert night arrived. 3 billion people tuned in worldwide, the largest global broadcast since the moon landing. The desert air was electric. Choirs sang in dozens of languages. Refugee children performed side by side with international artists. Giant holographic projections showed stories of children whose lives had been changed. When Sundar was finally introduced, the roar of applause shook the desert sands. He stepped forward, calm, reflective, deeply aware of what this moment truly meant. The final song, Sundar chose to perform a newly written song, one that combined elements from Bridge Over Troubled Water, Imagine, and We Are the World. But this time, with new lyrics inspired by his father's secret acts of kindness. The song was titled, "The Song My Father Never Sang." As he sang, the world fell silent. You gave when no one saw you. You dreamed when no one heard. You built the bridge beneath me, with every quiet word. Now your song lives on inside me, echoes through this land. We are one world together, still singing hand in hand. Behind him, a massive screen displayed footage of his childhood home, his father's workbench, the narrow streets of Chennai, and the faces of smiling refugee children. By the final verse, the children of the Voice Project, now numbering in the hundreds, walked onto stage singing in harmony. The world wept. The legacy, after the concert, global donations to the Voice Project skyrocketed. The program expanded into even more war zones, disaster areas, and poverty-stricken regions. Entire regions rebuilt not just schools, but hope. World leaders officially recognized the Voice Project as one of the most impactful humanitarian efforts of the decade. The final tribute weeks later, Sundar returned once more to Chennai. In a fine, small, emotional ceremony, the Voice Project built a new school there, the Pichai Institute for Human Dignity, dedicated in his father's honor. Sundar stood before the humble community that raised him and whispered, "Appa, your quiet song has now reached the world." A single tear rolled down his cheek, not of sorrow but of gratitude. The quiet ending late that night back in California, Sundar sat on his balcony once more. Anjali joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you think you finally finished your father's song?" she asked softly. "No," Sundar whispered, smiling. "I think it's only just begun." Above them, a gentle wind carried the soft hum of a distant melody, as if the world itself was still singing.